and not only do administrative tasks in the field, but engage with all activities which the agency supervisor will be expecting you to do. So that is the reason for sharing multitudes, variations, diversity of the kinds of work which are undertaken in the field. So not all institutions, not all fieldwork placements have casework, not all organizations have group work activities, and not all organizations work in the community. But because these are the core methods of social work, it is very important in your learning space that you understand, appreciate, and accept, so that when you are faced with different circumstances in the field, you are not going to say that, oh, I don't know anything about interviewing skills, I don't know anything about techniques in casework, I don't know anything about community work, I didn't learn that, I only did field work in this setting, I only did field work in that setting. No, we need to prepare you for the variations, the diversity, the different kinds of settings, and you need to equip yourself so that when you go for field work and when you become a professional social worker, finally, both the spaces you are comfortable, confident, professionally sound, and ready for taking on the jobs which are interested to you. So, with this background, you are seeing the interview techniques. Why are we discussing interviewing? What is interview? What is open style of interviewing? What are the different types of interviews? What is qualitative interviewing? We would like to share with you some tips for conducting qualitative interviews. What is narrative interviewing and what is transcription? So, when we go for field work, when we undertake field
So
work,
sorry, single mother.
yes, what
Yeah,
happened?
I just want to know.
Hmm.
Uh, we are going to handle this issue for fieldwork, but I've seen some elements concerning about research. Uh, are we going to have a dissertation or project for this course?
That is not for me to discuss now, but it is
Okay.
important for you to understand that interviewing skills are going to be useful in the theory class. Interviewing skills are going to be useful as a skills required to be learned by you for practicing as a student social worker. Interviewing skills are important for you to understand and learn when you come by the time you complete your professional journey, and whether you have research or not, there will be spaces in the job where you will be required to undertake research, where the organizations will be undertaking projects and your research skills would be useful. So I would appreciate that you pay attention. Yes, Anas Salisu, what would you like to say now?
Hello, ma'am. The presentation is not showing anything.
Wait, your voice is breaking.
The
Voice is breaking.
presentation is not showing anything, ma.
Presentation is not showing.
No, the presentation you are doing is not showing anything. Yeah, now it's
Now it's
visible now.
showing. Okay. Okay. So, with this background, I would like to come back to the presentation. Thus, is interview a good tool for fieldwork student, for a caseworker, and for a researcher? So, we need to understand and appreciate that interviews, when we conduct interviews, it helps us gather rich information by engaging with our clients in more details, by asking the relevant questions. We are able to gather enough information through the case studies, through the interviews, and we are, because very, yes, any other doubt? Sungane, you want to say?
Your microphone is on.
because you are able to gather enough information, your interviewing skills will be useful to enable you to draw detailed conclusions from the clients that you are interviewing. The third important feature of interviews is that it helps you take into consideration verbal cues, non-verbal cues, sometimes some reaction or emotional responses from the clients, which may set you thinking, some responses or reactions from the clients, which you may need to discuss with your fieldwork supervisor and your agency supervisor. So, all these are the reasons why interviews are extremely important. It is true that interviews are time consuming and challenging to conduct. You need to be a skillful social worker to conduct interviews, but it also means that you need to learn those skills while you are in the field so that when you are going to become a professional, you are ready for the world of work. Now, I had just mentioned something called open style of interviewing. But before coming to that, I will just take you through the three major kinds of interviews which are used by social workers. They are called structured interviews. Second one is unstructured interviews. Third one is semi structured interviews. Now, one by one, we will discuss this. What is structured interviews? You are able to see the presentation now, I'm sure, clearly.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. So, structured interviews means from the very word structured, we can understand that there are a predetermined questions in a set order, which means what? What is predetermined? The questions are framed and prepared by the social worker in advance, and they are in a sequence. Sequential order is there in those questions. Have any of you ever conducted any interviews with clients in the fieldwork journey so far? Have you conducted any interviews with the clients?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So listen to my points carefully because I'm going to ask you after this what you conducted and whether it was in line with what I'm presenting or it was different from what I'm presenting. Okay. So please listen carefully. In structured interviews, we have closed ended questions. What is closed ended questions? Did you ever conduct interview before? You will say yes or no. What is multiple choice questions? It will have more than one answer. So there could be close-ended questions. There could also be multiple choice questions framed by the social worker in advance, prepared by the social worker in advance. The open-ended questions definitely exist when we conduct a structured interview, but they are less common. As I mentioned, there is a set pattern among the responses because we are expecting certain kinds of responses. So we need to conduct a pilot study. What is a pilot study? Ever heard of pilot study? Before finally taking the interview head on with our clients, we create a mock situation where we test our interview questions and we ensure that the questions we have framed will get us the answers we expect to receive. Structured interviews also helps easy comparison between among the data which you are going to receive, responses or the data you are getting from your participants, from your clients. So you are prepared to make comparison. Structured interviews are such that it leads to higher reliability and validity, which is also relevant in research work. Which is also relevant in research work. So, This is important for you to understand. Next is structured interviews can be extremely formal and have limited scope compared to unstructured interviews. Now, we come to what is known as semi-structured interviews. In semi-structured interviews, it is a mix or a blend of structured interviews and unstructured interviews. They are open-ended. It allows for flexibility. There are no fixed questions framed, but there is a framework. There is definitely a framework. It follows a predetermined thematic framework, giving a sense of order. We still need to know what we are going to ask, but they are open-ended. If questions differ substantially between the participants or the clients, it can be challenging for a social worker who may not be well prepared. But if you are skillful and you know that you can mold the question depending on the response you are getting from your clients, the response you are getting from the community people, the response that you may get from the group members, you can look for patterns and you can generalize the responses. Semi-structured interviews are good if you have prior interview experience and are skillful in conducting interviews. It is easier than you think to ask a leading question. What is the meaning of a leading question? Leading question means what? Suppose I ask you, I don't know any of you, and I am having a dialogue with you. In technical terms, we are calling it interview. We are developing interview skills. I'm asking you to introduce yourself, or I'm asking you to give me feedback based on what I have taught you. Now, your responses can be anything: positive, negative, mixed, silence, no response. You may give a response which is not relevant. You may ask some other question. You may ask for additional information. If I'm not prepared as an interviewer, I will falter, or I will make excuses, or I will give wrong answers, or I will not give you satisfactory answer, which means that the interviewer will fail in his job in conducting the interview. So, if we ask leading questions, which we will come to, we need to be prepared to get the responses, to understand the responses, to mold the responses, and to ask the next question. Spontaneous questions are much more difficult than they seem. We need to prepare ourselves for the same. Now, finally, what is unstructured interviews? Most flexible type of interview are unstructured interviews. Questions which we ask and the order in which they are asked are not set. The interview can proceed spontaneously based on the responses of the clients or the participants. Unstructured interviews are open-ended. We need to be flexible to gather information. First question should, the response of one question should be able to help you to ask the next relevant question. You must be careful not to ask leading questions and make any biased responses or any non-judgmental or emotional responses or insensitive responses. So it's very important to understand interview, importance of interview in casework, importance of interview in group work, and importance of conducting interview in community work as well. And as I said, in half an hour, I will come to community work after I finish these slides which I have prepared for you. Now, what is open style of interviewing? Open style of interviewing means that we take responses or the experiences of the whole person rather than small account. Means what? That if an individual is approaching you or your organization with some marital discord or with a school problem or with a behavioral problem of a child, okay, that the school teacher or principal is referring you to referring one student to you with a behavioral problem or an academic problem, okay. Now you say that, ma'am, he has referred us with the academic problem. All my questions I am framing related to academics. That is not the case. It is possible that we need to understand the person or the student or the client as a whole, as a whole, not as
Sorry
in,
for interruption. Screen is not visible. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
I've paused the screen to explain something to you. I've paused the screen. I'll come back to
Okay,
screen.
fine.
I'm explaining
Okay, fine.
example to you. Example is not written in that. That is only theory. And other inputs I'm giving in the chat and in the person. That's why I'm keeping my video on. So, a student who has a behavioral issue or an academic issue is referred to you by the principal or the teacher, and you frame all the questions. You plan an interview, you frame all the questions related to academics, related to behavior, but somewhere along the line, you forget to frame questions related to family background, related to his or her interests, related to sports, related to extracurricular activities. What other questions do you think you should ask? I've given you 3, 4 topics. What other questions do you think you will need to ask if you really want to understand and to see the person as a whole? Yes, Anas, please go ahead. Your voice is breaking. Your voice is right in the chat or
Nah, your screen is not visible.
open style of interviewing. We take responses or experiences of the whole person relating to his family background, relating to his childhood, relating to any events which may have occurred in the childhood, relating to his neighborhood, relating to his or her experiences in school, relating to his or her experiences in the family, sometimes marital, beyond marital discord. It could be intergenerational, the previous generation, or something from previous birth also some organizations and societies believe could impact an human being. So we need to be very skillful in interpreting the information we get from the interviewee. So the interpretation and content which we received from our clients while conducting interviews should be based on the interviewee's perspective through the whole narrative in the client's own words. We should not interpret the client's words. When I am saying to you, for example, that please participate in the uh, class, you are not participating. You're not giving feedback. Yesterday I asked for feedback end of the class. Now, if you ask for feedback from your client and he doesn't give feedback, what will you do? Please remember that we have to learn these things now while we are doing field work. The role of the interviewer, that is, who is that? You, the role of the social worker, is to actively listen, to facilitate the interviewee in sharing their story by encouraging them verbally, by affirmative statements, or asking clarifying questions. You have to be able to ensure that your interviewee or your client has understood what you're asking him or her. If you are agreeing or understanding, you have to nod. Your body language should be such that the interviewee is willing to give more information. Your facial expression should be such throughout the interview that the interviewee is interested in sharing more of his or her own journey or problems or traumas or situations. So we have to adopt a position of attentive listening and listening non judgmentally without being judgmental. That is extremely important in open style of interviewing. Now, there's something that I want to add to explaining the interview method. It's called narrative interview method, and there are 2 phases. First phase is open ended, and there's initial question when the interviewee comes and sits in front of you. and you welcome him or her or ask them, please be seated. You make them comfortable. You close the door so that no one outside is listening to the conversation. And after having initial rapport with the client, interviewee, you very politely say, please tell me your story. Then hopefully the interviewer will start telling in whichever way they feel comfortable their story. The interviewer should not interrupt the narration, but we need to maintain eye contact and give the impression genuinely to the interviewee that we are interested in his or her story. Interviewer may note down some keywords to remember the questions. And if the interviewee is uncomfortable, you need to make them comfortable. You need to say that if it's okay with you, I would like to make some notes, some points, because I want to enable you, to help you, and I don't want to forget what we are sharing today. Is it okay with you? This is the first phase of starting rapport building with the client. The second phase is that interviewer poses questions on subjects which have been mentioned by the respondent. That means previous time when the client came, he or she shared their story. Wherever it ended, you made notes. You cannot afford to forget what he or she told you. The next time the interview is fixed, you have to start from where he or she left off. But you have to remember that you need answers to the questions to help him solve his problem. So, some more questions can be posed about topics which you may not have mentioned or discussed in the previous interview. So, this is a skill which you need to learn on the job in the fieldwork journey. What are the other aspects about interviews and interviewing skills which we need to know? Interviews are designed to collect a rich source of information from a small number of people about various things: attributes, behavior, preferences, feelings, attitudes, opinions, knowledge. It doesn't mean that in one interview we will get all the information in one go. No. Interviews are designed and directed, created and constituted in such a way that depending on the need of the situation, we may be conducting interviews to get to understand the feelings of the client or the attitudes of the client, or a combination of opinion, attitudes, and feelings. It varies from situation to situation. What are the other kind of interviews which can be conducted or which are required to be conducted by social workers? One is a phone interview. Phone interview can be telephonic, WhatsApp, video call. Face-to-face interview is called off in the offline mode. Before COVID times, we only knew face-to-face interview. But now we know online mode, Google Meet, Zoom call. What else? So we need to understand that times have changed. Depending on the situation, we should make the best use of the techniques used. Now, what are the important steps in interview? As mentioned to you, first is to design or develop the interview questions. Second is to develop an interview guide. What kind of questions are you going to ask? What kind? What kind of questions? What will be the framework? And then plan and manage logistics. Where will the interview be conducted? When will the interview be conducted? Will you have a co-worker there? Will you have a senior there in the organization? Yes, you're saying something? Any questions? Do you have any questions at this juncture?
Hello, ma'am.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
What's the difference between structured interview and open interview?
Structured and open.
And unstructured, unstructured and the open interview. What's the
I
difference?
Write in the chat, structured and which one?
Unstructured and open interview.
Yes. Yes.
What's their difference?
We will tell you. First, I want to know from you who has conducted interviews in the past and what have you conducted. Then I will tell you the differences.
Okay.
How many of you have conducted interviews in your fieldwork journey? Anybody has conducted interviews? Some people have conducted. Some people have conducted. I want to hear, because after that I will be sharing one article on social work with children where interviews have been conducted, and that will make it clear what is structured and what is not. Open style of interviewing is very similar to unstructured interview. Structured is everything is framed, rigid. Yes, Anas?
The screen is not visible, ma'am.
Write in the chat why there's so much disturbance when your audio becomes on. You are giving relevant information, but we can't hear you. Please write. There's a lot of disturbance when audio is coming on for you, but you are helping in the contributing to the discussion. So can you write in chat? Is it possible? Anas, can you hear me? Screen is not visible. Okay, that is your issue. Okay, let us see what happened to the screen. Please wait. I'm going to open another screen because I want to show this article to you and then come back to the main presentation, because that will help you to understand better. Can you see this article on social work with children by Dr. Mahua Nigurkar?
Yes.
Yes. Now this article was written and it talks of field work in social work with children, scope and skills. Can you see that? Just 8-page article, and I will finish page 1 already. So I am being careful of time because I had 4 o'clock. I should come to community work. Now, the objective with which this article has been written is to gain greater awareness about the scope of social work intervention, to learn about social work with children across different settings, and to gain an overview of basic skills of social worker. Now, this module has been written. It is titled Social Work with Children, Scope and Skills. The basic skills for working with children are enumerated, and scope of intervention by social worker is written. Now, in this process, you will tell me when we conduct the interview, how we will go about it. Because I thought you will share your journey of undertaking interview, but so far you have not started that discussion. Now, introduction says that social work with children is one of the core areas of social work intervention. There's a lot of scope of working with children in different settings. Have any of you worked with children in any fieldwork setting?
Yes, we have, ma'am.
Have. So that means that this will be relevant for you, right?
Yes,
Ma'am, it is. It is relevant.
Relevant. So, to be able to work effectively with children or on issues concerning children, certain core skills are required. This module outlines the range of work with different settings and the basic skills of working with children. Directly, I'm coming to scope of social work intervention. On the right side, you are seeing a box, which is talking of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Have you heard of Convention on Rights of the Child before? CRC?
Yes, ma'am.
So that means that it is appropriate to what we are discussing now. Now, what are the different conventions? The key entitlement is age of the child as 18 years, right to identity and protection from discrimination, birth registration, right to family, right to reunification with family, right to special care for children with disability, right to health, right to juvenile justice, right to rest and leisure, right to protection from sexual abuse and exploitation, right to humanitarian assistance for a child with refugee status. Now, any kind of social work with children needs to adhere to the overarching framework of the constitutional provision, national laws, policies, programs, and schemes which address different issues concerning children. If we find that there are certain gaps in any of the above, or that implementation is not happening to the desired extent, we can create advocacy and a campaign around the same to ensure that the required changes are made. The overall vision of social work with children would be to ensure that child rights and child protection for each and every child in society is maintained. Child rights are based on the core principles of non discrimination, right to survival, right to participation, and the best interest of the child. As per the Juvenile Justice Act of 2015, best interest of the child means the basis for any decision taken regarding the child to ensure fulfillment of his basic rights and needs, identity, social well being, and physical, emotional, and intellectual development. Now, why I'm reading this, be careful, because if so much is expected, if so much is expected from the act, that means that when we are framing the questions to understand whether the child is getting his basic rights and needs, including his social well being, whether his social well being is protected, including his emotional and intellectual development. So, what kinds of questions we will frame if a child is entrusted to us in an institution and we have to interview the child? So, keep this in mind as we are moving ahead. I will ask you to frame the questions in 10 minutes. Child protection is about addressing child rights violation or preventing children from experiencing situations of violence, exploitation, abuse, and neglect. Fulfillment of child rights is a responsibility of adults. The family, community, and state are mandated to work towards child rights, which means that you will not only interview the child, you will also interview the family members. Social work with children can be undertaken at different levels and for different purposes. Coming to direct work with children, since the number of children requiring care and protection is large, there is a lot of scope to engage in direct work with children. Many of us are inclined towards direct work with children, either through work with individual children or through groups. Direct work with children and youth is possible. We may need to work with young children, dropout children, school going children, adolescents, youth in the community. So you look at this diagram, range and scope of working with children. Where are the spaces for direct work with children? It can be undertaken within the family, in the school environment, in the neighborhood, in the community, in residential institutions, or in the juvenile justice system in aftercare homes or correctional homes. With significant adults, who are the significant adults in the life of the child? They are parents or family members, teachers, neighbors, community persons, other key stakeholders like the police, judiciary, health workers, education, and government functionaries. So, this is very important for us to understand here. Direct work with children can be in the following areas of adoption, foster care, sponsorship, school social work. Remember, yesterday I gave you example of school social work. Yesterday, I had given you example of school social work. That when I was working as a school social worker, remember or you have forgotten by now?
Yes, you did, ma.
Yeah, we remember.
Yes. Remember, we were taking counseling cases. I was taking students for outreach work in the community. Outreach work in the community. They were engaging with vulnerable elderly population in the community and learning how to take care of the elderly. And do you know one of the experiences which the students gained, and some of them are still in touch with me, that when they were taking care of the elderly in the community and they went back home, over a period of time, their relationship with the elderly people in their own homes improved. How do you think it happened? Can anyone explain to me how it happened? Have you understood what I'm saying? While working on the Adopt a Grand project of Helpage India, Helpage India is working for the elderly. They were working with vulnerable elderly people, vulnerable, marginalized elderly people who had been abandoned by their young boys and girls, by their young children. And my students of class 9 and 11 were working with these elderly people after school hours. I was monitoring them. I was the school social worker. I was running the project regularly, guiding students to interact, tell some snippets from the school, place, have some recreational activities, conduct some cultural program in the weekend, take them for sightseeing, take them for historical visit, take them to holy places. In all this process, my students of school, regular students, reported after 6 months, some reported after 10 months, some reported after 1 year, that, ma'am, we go back now, we are understanding the plight of our grandmother and grandfathers. And we have begun talking to them. Earlier, my parents were also not bothered to uh, encourage us to talk to our grandparents. But now, after seeing what it means to be lonely, after seeing what it means to be depressed, after seeing what it means to be disabled, after seeing what it means to be marginalized, after seeing what it means to be unfortunate, after seeing what it means to be isolated, give me There was some issue, so I had to. Can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yes, yes, because there was some issue, so it got disconnected. I am resharing my screen and I want to understand that what I was trying to say to you, that what do you think was the reason why students of class 9 and 11, you understood my question, were able to connect with their own grandparents? As a result of this was not one of the anticipated results. And what kind of interviews do you think were being conducted with the elderly people, which enabled the students to learn from practice, to learn from me as a social worker? Have you understood what I'm trying to share with you? These stories of from my fieldwork journey I'm sharing with you. Are you getting what I'm sharing with you?
Yes, ma'am, we are following.
So why do you think that the students were able to connect better? And what kind of interviews was I conducting? Both open-ended, both unstructured, both structured and unstructured, because I was conducting structured interviews because the Helpage India had given me format. Format from Helpage India was there to get information regarding the elderly people. But I was also conducting unstructured interviews because my students were asking me questions that, ma'am, why is this like this? Why is that like that? Why do the grown up adults of these elderly people not stay with them? If they are staying with them, why do they not provide them with food? If they stay with them, why do they not provide them emotional support? Some of the questions were not there in the structured format, but I was providing information to my students, which they were processing, using, and making uh, sense out of the data which was generated, the information which was generated from the interviews, information which they learned from the interviews, information which, if when I was conducting interviews with the elderly people, they were picking up from the answers. Some elderly were crying while giving the information because they were embarrassed, humiliated, ashamed to talk about their children not looking after them. They were embarrassed to take the help of Helpage India. When every month I was doing the ration distribution to the elderly people with the help of my students, when I was doing health camp, when I was undertaking cultural programs, when I was undertaking recreation programs, the elderly people were overjoyed that somebody is taking interest in their welfare. Somebody is giving them time, including the students of the big public school are taking time to spend with them. Their own children are not taking time, but these people are taking time. Now, I want you to share any experiences from your fieldwork journey regarding conducted interviews and anything you learned from those interviews. Anybody can share? Because you have all conducted interviews in BSW first year. 2 semesters you went for fieldwork, I think. And it is important to learn these skills of working with people. These are called skills of working with people. Skills of working with people include casework, group work, and community organization. I'm giving 5 minutes for feedback because after that I want to move to community work. When you have conducted interviews and from the data that I'm sharing with you, what kind of interviews do you think you conducted based on what I'm sharing with you? No answer. Important steps in conducting interviews is what we are discussing. The important steps in conducting interviews include developing the framework, designing the questions, formulating the questions, anticipating the kind of questions that we need to ask, anticipating the kind of responses that we are likely to get. If any uncomfortable questions are asked and the interviewee is not able to answer or not willing to answer, what will we do? How will we reframe the question so that the interviewee is comfortable in giving us the information? Design interview questions. Can you see this slide? Think about how you will interview. What questions will you ask without being intimidating or threatening? Francis,
Yes, ma'am.
please
I
go
think,
ahead.
yes, from what you have presented, it looks like we used a combination of both structured and unstructured.
Correct.
For example, I had an interview with prison authorities when I was doing the first year field visits.
Hmm.
The prison authorities were reluctant to answer some of the questions that I posed against them.
Hmm.
Then we had to shift the interview to the inmates.
Hmm.
The inmates, some of them were open to answer, others were afraid. So we had also to engage another organization called the Prison Fellowship Organization, which have been working with prisons in Malawi for quite some time.
Hmm.
So where we got the information that actually I was focusing on. It was a
Okay.
question relating to homosexuals and homosexual abuses in the hospital, sorry, not hospitals, but in the prisons.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the authorities were not willing to admit that this behavior actually happens.
Hmm.
Then the inmates, some of them had to show that indeed this behavior is happening, and the prison fellowship, they were the ones who actually confirmed to say there is this that is happening and it needed to be helped.
Correct. I'm glad
Then,
you are sharing your experiences. Yes. Is there anyone else who want to share? Because that will help you revisit what you have done. It will help you revisit and plan better for the next round of interviews that you will conduct. It will help you appreciate your strengths. It will enable you to empower yourself as a student social worker so that you become more confident while conducting interviews. Think about what kind of information you want to obtain from the interviews and frame your questions accordingly. Think about why you want to pursue in depth interview information, not only around your research topic, but around the aspects which you are seeking information about. Now, if you are working with an organization and the organization wants to conduct an awareness program, you first need to understand from the community members whether they are aware of that or not. Do they know enough about HIV and AIDS? Do they know enough about homosexuality and gay behavior? Are they comfortable with discussing these? So you may interview 10 people to get an idea before planning the program on behalf of the organization. So the interview is not only when client is approaching you, but it could be for many purposes. So interview questions, don't think only in terms of casework. Think in terms of group work activity. Think in terms of community work activity. You may need to develop an interview guide. What does an interview guide mean? Introduce yourself as a social worker, as a community worker, or as a staff member representative of the organization, or as a representative of the organization if you're doing field work. Introduce yourself, explain the purpose of the interview. It is the responsibility of the social worker to explain the purpose of the interview. Devise your questions, design your questions in such a way that the interviewee can answer those questions, not to make them uncomfortable, but to enable them to answer questions. Make sure that you can move easily in the interview process between previous question and next question. Please do not ask leading questions. Sometimes in a marital discord case, one social worker is asking, how many times your husband has beaten you? That is a leading question. Have a sequence of your questions. What are the topics? Group them together. Don't ask one set of questions, then go back, then disjointed, then disoriented. You yourself don't know what is the flow. That is why we encourage students to conduct a pilot study, a mock interview, to test the questionnaire, to test the interview topics, plan and manage the logistics. If I am conducting interview for the first time, am I comfortable in conducting the interview? Should I take help of a senior in the organization who is called a second interviewer? Can I keep someone with me so that in case I falter, the other person can pitch in? Do you need someone to take notes? Can you take your own notes? Do you want to record interviews? Have you sought the permission of the interviewee or the client to record the interview? Where will you conduct the interview? Not in the marketplace, not in the roadside, not under the metro station. We should take a setting which is least distraction. Do you have an estimated time of how long the interview is likely to take? You think it will take 2 hours. I have only 1 hour to give you. You didn't check with me whether I have 2 hours to spare. Do you need to address issues of confidentiality? All these are extremely important in planning and conducting an interview. So please be mindful, please be alert, please use your skills in the fieldwork setting to learn how to use the skills. You need to learn that. You need to become skillful. Only then we should be ready to conduct interviews which are sensitive in nature. Now, after explaining to you the need for interviews, the importance of interviews, I'm coming to working with communities. Can you see my word file? Entering the community. What is community work? What is community work? You are learning community work and community organization. What is community work? Mariam? Please give me 2-minute break. I'll just get some hot water. You also get a glass of water or tea and we will rejoin. Mariam will tell us what is community work. Okay, I'm coming back to join you. It is 4 o'clock. I will take it past 5 o'clock because I joined 5 minutes late. Mariam, you are getting ready? Please get ready to share what is community work. I'm joining you in 2 minutes. Mariam and Chipilero will tell us what is community work because we all belong to communities. We all hail from communities. We are not living in isolation. Now we have virtual communities also. Okay, Mariam, your turn. Please go ahead. I'm back as promised in 2 minutes. Mariam and Chipile. Oh, Mariam is having problem with network. Michael, what about you? What is community work? Please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, nicely. Clear.
All right, thank you. Community work is all about, it is a series of different community initiatives, projects, or programs that are aimed at addressing various issues that do take place in the community. For instance, during community week is where we go to identify some of the challenges that community members are facing in the community. So
Very
coming up
good.
with the initiatives or projects or programs that are aimed at addressing those challenges, that process is what is known as community work.
Excellent. Excellent. Yes, Chiplaro, your turn.
Um, Community work is about people coming together to their neighborhood or town, a better place to live. That's a community work.
Very good.
So in
Have you?
addition to that, it involves individual or a group working on project that benefits the community as a whole. Thank you. I'm over.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Who else can add value? Form of social work with focus on assisting and supporting community people. Definitely. Who else wants to add? Because now is your time before I begin my discussion. Boshart, Bua, Cliff, would you like to add something here? Grace, P1? Yes, Kandiro? Please go ahead.
Yeah, in other ways, we can say this is a service or outreach involves individuals or groups engaging in activities that benefit and support their local communities.
Very good. Benefit and support local communities. Excellent. Anybody else wants to add? Because you are all hailing from communities and working with communities. So we need to benefit from your experience also. You are benefiting from my experience. How will I benefit from yours? Now is the time to speak your mind. Michael? Okay. Since nobody is saying something. Yes, Michael?
Yeah, I just want to add up what Jibril has already emphasized. Actually, whenever we are, of course, doing community work, the purpose, of course, the main purpose is that we want to transform, of course, the lives of the people in the community that we are approaching. So we also consider certain values whenever we are conducting a community work, like empowerment, because the main target is that the people whom we are going to work with should be empowered.
Yes.
So that the initiative or any work that we're going to leave with the people, just like you gave an example that you were doing a certain initiative with um, the primary students
Hmm.
about of which you engaged, of course, you were sensitizing them on how to, of course, live with the elderly and what have you. And
Yes.
in the long run, you got a feedback from those subjects that you engaged. So the feedback, the positive feedback that came out of the primary school, that was an empowerment. You empowered them. So there came a positive feedback from the community that you engaged. So I just
Very
wanted also to add up that whenever we are doing a community work, we are also aiming at transforming or empowering that community that we are going to engage or we are approaching. I just wanted to add that.
Very good. I'm very proud of all of you. Michael has spoken very well. Pilirani, Stephen, Victoria, would you like to add something before I proceed? Mariam has written, community work is an introduction to the theory and practice of work, assisting people. Excellent. Very good. Assisting people to set up and run groups acting to improve communities. Very nice. Anybody else wants to add something? Pilirani, Stephen, Victoria? Nothing? Okay. So then that takes me back to my presentation. Entering the community. Can you see this?
No, I have nothing right now. I have
Can't
nothing
see
on right now.
right now? Entering the community. Sometimes we take this process of entering the community for granted. Process of entering the community. We say we just have to walk in. When I walked into community 20 years ago, where I conducted Helpage India project much later very successfully, the first response of the one of the community members, women, was, guess what? She said, lot of social workers came and went like you, madam. What will you do? Lot of social workers like you have come and gone. What is the meaning of that negative sentence? And from that negative sentence, I have to enter the community and transform myself as a social worker and transform the lives of the community as a social worker, despite the negative experience they had in the past. Entering the community means we should be comfortable while entering. We should make others comfortable while entering. We should be able to interact purposefully. We should not get carried away with any negative comments. We should be able to project a positive image of ourselves, our organization, our profession. Sometimes we conduct role plays in the community to identify situations, to get to understand community members, to get their acceptance. Have you heard of role play? Have you ever conducted role play in the community? Anybody conducted role play? You know what is role play? What is a role play? Have you conducted street play? Yes, Michael?
Yeah, of course. Role play is a kind of a comedy. Yeah, like a comedy that is done per a given topic, so that you should instill in the mind of the people uh, a practical example of whatever you want to deliver. For example, maybe you want to sensitize people about the the negative effects of gender-based violence.
Mm-hmm.
So you can engage certain players in the play, like a man abusing a woman, and in the long run, the effects that are coming because of the gender-based violence. So when people go back to their homes, whatever you have instilled in them, like they pray, they'll still remember that oh, today we have watched a certain play, we have watched a certain comedy or a tragedy that was talking about or that was addressing a certain particular issue to do with gender-based violence. So you want to instill, to put that thing in their mind so that they should never forget. So role play is just an example of that. You want to impact that in their minds.
Anybody else ever conducted role play in the community? So sometimes role plays are conducted to begin a conversation with community people, to know how community people will respond to questions which you have as a social worker, to know how to build a positive image of oneself as a social worker and of the organization which one is representing. So generally, when I conduct sessions with students in different colleges of social work, I get them to do a role play of 20 minutes with 6 to 8 volunteers and with some observers. So the organization, we give situation like this, that the organization wants to begin work in a new community. The trainee social worker is assigned the task of meeting key persons, discussing the organization's work and intention to start work in the community. Trainee social worker has to indicate through the role play how key persons were identified and located and process of conversation with them. Now, I don't have time with you people because we are online, but sometimes in online platforms also in the COVID times, we have asked students to conduct role play in the Zoom call. Have you used your COVID time for this purpose at any stage? Okay. So situation 2, which we give, which you can also use in the communities where you are working, where you are going for fieldwork this semester. I'm purposely telling you the situations to help you to plan your fieldwork journey in case you don't understand why I'm sharing these details with you. So I am enabling you by giving you some suggestions. Yes, Michael, what would you like to say? Would you like to say something, Michael?
No, ma'am, I'm following, just following.
Yeah, I just want to comment on the role play. Mostly in an organization whereby there is a different individuals. For example, at the organization whereby it's hosting the children or the elderly. So they have to conduct maybe the songs and the dances so that they should bring them together in that particular area without seeing one another that there is a different levels. But they have to sing a song in oneness and then they're supposed to dance. That's what I know whenever we are entering in the community. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. That is very important what you have shared because we have to break the ice. We have to make them comfortable. We have to see that they accept us for who we are. We have to be sure that community people don't feel that we are outsiders. So the second situation which I'm sharing with you is in an area where an organization has been working for some time. The trainee social worker is sent to the community for the first time. The trainee social workers are instructed by the fieldwork supervisor to walk around the community to observe living conditions, infrastructural amenities, common patterns of interaction in the community. They are to record their impressions and expressions. So once trainee social worker is going around the community, interacting with people, making notes, seeing the resources available in the community, preparing a community map, which I'm coming to in 2-3 pages, preparing a community profile, getting to see what is the lifestyle of the different sections of society in the community. The trainee social workers makes notes and reports to the fieldwork supervisor. The fieldwork supervisor discusses with the trainee social worker during individual conference these 5 things. 1, how did the trainee social worker or the trainee social workers, if there are more than one in a particular community, approach the community members while trying to identify locations? 2, how did they introduce themselves? 3, how did they convey the purpose of their visit? 4, how did their visit conclude? The visit has to conclude, now the day has to come to an end, the fieldwork day. 5, what kinds of attitudes and values did the trainee social worker reflect through their style of talking, through the tone of the conversation, through the content of the conversation he or she had? What were their facial expressions and reactions of the student while he or she is meeting the people in the community? Sometimes, some of our students who are coming from different parts of the country, they were traveling in the local train in Mumbai, and in their hometown, they never traveled in the local train. And they were covering their nose and mouth because of the smell of other people in the train. Same thing they were doing in community. Is it acceptable to put like this your nose, to make a face if it is a filthy environment, dirty place, public toilets? You getting my points?
Yes, not good at all.
So we need to be careful how we come across in the community when we are undertaking community work. Working with communities can also mean that we work with small groups in the community, groups of children, groups of elderly, groups of women, groups of men, groups of adolescents. There could be different kinds of groups. And what does that mean? The next point which I'm trying to discuss with you is, why is it important to understand the community? What do we mean by understanding the community? Can you tell me? Understanding the community, we go on saying, as social worker, teachers, as fieldwork supervisors, understanding the community means what? What are we going to do? Tell me, as trainee social workers, what are you expected to do to understand the community? Can somebody tell me? Yes, Michael? You can go ahead, then Francis can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Understanding community is the same as trying to
Trying to?
or engaging yourself with the community members, whereby you need to carry out as a social worker. We need as social workers we need to engage maybe our spouse.
Can everybody hear him?
Advisors, and of course plan on the place of which we are going to do our go to the field, or you go to the community. Yeah, in the first place you need to follow all the protocols for that community. We need to engage the hierarchy of that community. Maybe, yeah, for instance, we have the in Malawi TA, traditional authority of that place. We have other influential groups of which we need to inform them that you have a particular activity that you want to conduct in that area. So after that, I think you are always welcomed because you have reached the most influential or the most important people in that community. Of course, transit work.
Very good.
Transit work, that is an exercise also. Yeah, transit talk. You engage certain people or that community or village agents or that particular area, so that they should direct you to some of the places of which you want to gather your information from. For example, you can walk. You can have a walk from one village to another, just trying to get a real evidence from the community. So understanding is you are exploring anything to do with the community, the socioeconomic profile of that area, the kind of behavior people that believe in that area, and different beliefs that the people have there. So about trying to explore more about the community in all aspects of their life. Thank you, ma'am.
Very good, very good, very good. Who else wanted to give their peace of mind? Somebody else raised their hand. I missed that person. That who wants to share? Understanding the community means what? Are we on the same page when we are saying understand the community? What is the information we need to gather? How are we going to gather that information? Who are the key stakeholders in the community? Who are the key persons that whom we are going to contact to get the information? Whose audio is on? Francis, you want to say something?
Yes, ma'am. I was just trying to concur with my colleague.
Yes.
Say that the first thing is to learn about the people, their needs, their values, their relationships, and their environment. So once you establish it, I like you're able to know to say, okay, if the community has got needs, who is the head or the in charge of those needs? If they have got values, who are the head or the key people that are custodians of those values? If there are relationships and the environment, then when entering the community, you're supposed to engage those leaders. It could be traditional leaders, it could be religious leaders, education leaders, and the other key people in the social work. So, to my understanding, that's how we understand the community, by learning its leadership, learning its people, their needs, their values, their relationships, and how they interact with the environment.
Very nice. That's very good. Anybody else wants to contribute before I move ahead? Grace? Okay. So we have some idea. We encourage students to prepare a list of people whom they will be interviewing, and also to understand what is community profiling. How do we create a community profile? If we are going to have focus group discussion with specific community subsections, how will we conduct it? I'm coming to preparing a community map. Community map, generally we have a guided discussion followed by a practical exercise. So we use in the old school method, offline method, rough paper, pencil, chart paper, sketch pens. The objective is to develop skills to draw a community map. The second major objective is to gain an understanding about the use of community map to analyze the community situation. After doing so, we have a discussion with the students. Now, what is the importance of the mapping exercise? Firstly, we need to understand that community mapping is a process which enables people to gather accurate information about how a community operates in order to mobilize its members and put them in a better position to represent themselves. So, the importance of the community mapping exercise is twofold. One, to give an idea of the approximate layout and spread of the community. Two, to help locate the infrastructure and amenities in the community. Now, while doing so, we need to understand that community mapping involves taking the help of people of the community as well. It helps us to interact with community people. The rapport building with community people happens as a result of this community mapping exercise. So it is not just a process of creating a community map, but of engaging with people for the purpose of rapport building. Now, there are certain do's and don'ts in working with communities. In the do's list, we have 7 short do's. Be polite and pleasant as far as possible. Begin or initiate conversation with informal interaction with people. Be clear about the purpose of seeking information. We should not ask too many personal questions. If people raise doubts about the type of questions we are raising, we should be able to clarify honestly and sincerely. We need to talk to people when they are available, not force them to leave their work and talk to us. We need to be sensitive to people's time, and our words should reflect respect for people. In the don'ts, we need to keep in mind that we should not force people to respond to our questions. They are not bound by any moral authority to have to reply to us. We should try not to get into arguments if as far as possible. We should try not to frame negative questions to intimidate people. We should try not to block hostile reactions. If they give any negative reaction or any hostile, we should not push them away. We need to accept it as part of our principle of acceptance. We need to request people that we don't have to be called sir or madam because we are trainee social worker. We can be called by our name. And we should consciously avoid using any uncomfortable or big words, foreign words, which they don't understand. Which means, as far as possible, we need to talk in the local language with local lingo, not very high profile academic language. Now, the next important point in this, as I was mentioning, is community mapping. Community mapping involves creating a map with the economic distinctions, with the social distinctions, mapping the location of different organizations in the community, mapping the location of beneficiaries, mapping the location of participants. We should also be able to map households of key persons, of opinion leaders, of community leaders, and we should visit every lane of the community, not make any distinction that this is middle class or this is lower middle class and this is a poor pocket, this is a vulnerable pocket. No. In community mapping, we have to visit the whole community. We should be able to indicate in the community map which is north, south, east, west. We should be able to indicate in the community map the important landmarks. There is something called transact walk and there is something called PRA. Now, have you heard of transact walk? Going about the community. What is transact walk in community work? Have you heard of it? In the theory class. I'm trying to link theory and practice as much as possible in the last half an hour that I have with you today. What is a transact walk? I'm posting in the chat. So one of you can read it and share with all of us so that we can discuss it and use our time fruitfully, the last half an hour that we have with each other today. Can somebody read what I have written in the chat just now? Would you like to read?
A transact map accomplished through a transact call. It is too used by a group undertaking observation-based community improvement, which should include informed community members and people with technical skills to identify and propose solutions to issues that are visibly manifested on a walk through the community. Transact work can supplement formal maps and data, but in cases where these do not exist, they are excellent tools for creating a record of environmental conditions, those arising in the natural, built, and experienced environment. The work, the work can take 1 to 3, but advanced planning is important to identify objectives and methods. You will need several large You'll need several large sheets of construction paper and makers and makers. That's all now.
So, coming back to identifying, we may be having local shops in the community. We may be having public toilets. We may be having community hall. All these have to be indicated with different colors. First, we'll draw a rough map, then we'll draw the final map. Sometimes you see online community maps. You can check online what is a community map. Wherever you Google after finishing this class, please check how to prepare a community map in more detail. The next thing I want to share with you, as part of working with communities and working through communities, which is what this is called, conducting meetings in the community. Have you ever conducted meetings in the community, any of you? See whether it.
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Yes. So any thoughts you have based on what I'm presenting from your experience? What did it feel like to conduct meeting in the community? Were you satisfied with the meeting you conducted in the community? Who can share? Any one meeting you conducted in the community and you think that you had a very good meeting? Would you like to share? Anybody? Why do we conduct meetings in the community? And what is achieved by conducting meetings in the community? If any of you have conducted a meeting in the community, can you share your experience of conducting that meeting so that we can add value to our fieldwork journey? Yes, Michael, please go ahead, then Francis.
I think, ma'am, are you able to hear me there?
Yes.
Yeah, I engaged the ADC, an abbreviation of Area Development Committee, in one of the areas that I was assigned to do a particular task. So there was an issue, or maybe in the first place, I just wanted to share the objective of the meeting, that we wanted to eradicate at least the deforestation. Yeah, the careless cutting down of trees in the area, because people were fond of cutting down the trees to burn the charcoal. So we engaged the area development committee, which is the main, of course, group in the area that looks at different affairs of the community. So we, through the ADC, we called the whole community together at a certain ground. So we had that session where we had to, of course, in the first place, identify the problem that was there. That we were losing the trees that we were proud of in the first place, and later on we generated the solutions. We had the suggestion. It's like we were suggesting to the people. We gave them an opportunity to, of course, air out their suggestions. What would be the best solutions to the problem that was there? So, of course, there was a negative and, of course, a positive response from the people. We had a group of people that accepted to take an initiative whereby we agreed that we should replant the trees. We, of course, came up with a schedule so that each and every member should take, I think, a certain moment to plant the trees in the located places where the trees were cut down. So we had a group of people who accepted that, and on the other hand, there was a negative response because other people did not turn up. So I was, of course, proud that the initiative had worked because at least some trees were replanted in the forest where they were lost. But on the other hand, there was that negative feeling that some people had refused to be with us in the initiative. So that's what I had as my experience in working with the community.
Okay, very good. Francis, would you like to share? Okay, Francis, no response. So basically, conducting meetings in the community entails deciding on the relevant issues for which meetings are required, planning and preparing for the meeting, inviting or gathering the participants and community members, and conducting the meeting. What skills are required in conducting meetings? That is also what you need to learn in the third semester of your fieldwork journey. Now, we need to understand the relevance and the purpose of conducting meetings. We need to understand what are the various stages involved. We need to enhance our skills to conduct meetings which are participatory in nature. What is the meaning of being participatory in nature? How will we encourage community members to participate in the meetings? Michael, you have raised your hand. How will we encourage participation of community people in the meetings? Can somebody tell me? How will we encourage participation? Are you asleep or should I wind up?
No, we are listening, ma'am. We are not sleeping.
Okay. I want to encourage you to tell me how will we encourage community members to participate in the meetings? Is it our responsibility or not as social workers? That is my question.
It is our responsibility. Going back to your question, which says, how do we enter the communities? We are going to say that we need to at least accept, understand, and approve the values of the communities. So that is the best place to start from. We need to appreciate what they're doing right, what they're doing best, and maybe have a common ground on what we want to improve or what we can work on, maybe for the betterment of everyone. So I believe by appreciating what they're already doing, it opens a table for discussion. So that is one of the way we can encourage communities to participate by encouraging and promoting what they're already doing well. Thereby, we make them to open up and speak.
How do we deal with conflict in the community? Suppose we are having meeting and some fight or argument starts between two factions in the meeting. Some argument starts among the community members and the meeting gets disrupted. How will we handle it? Do we have the skill to handle it? We need to
That's a tough one. It is a new community.
Okay, but think about it. Think about it. All of you discuss it among yourselves after class. Class will be over in half an hour, but I want to encourage you to challenge yourself. The purpose of these 4 days is not just to make you comfortable with the information, but to help you to challenge yourself so that when you are in the field, you can deal with the issues which emerge. That is why I am encouraging you to do role plays, encouraging you to do brainstorming, encouraging you to think out of the box. Okay? The other thing I want to highlight
Yes,
through
ma'am.
discussion. Yes, you want to say something? You know, how we are inviting the people to the meeting. Are we compelling them to come? Are we forcing them to come? What kind of seating arrangements we have? As social worker, are we sitting in the chair and making people sit in the ground? Are we making the senior people sit in front? Are we making women sit in the side? Are any participants getting blocked? Are we making a circle? Assessment of the workers' participation. What ice breaking measures are you taking? Are you playing any small game for ice breaking measures, or just starting your lecture? How are you introducing the purpose of the meeting? Are you making a presentation? Is it a formal program? Is it an informal program? The conclusion that you are arriving at, how are you going to do follow up? What techniques are you going to use to draw the attention of audience? Suppose somebody gets up and walks away. What is your manner or measures of tackling disturbances and cross-purpose discussion? How will you handle any dominating influence that always one person is taking the decision in the group? We all have to follow. How are you going to handle disagreements? What is the availability of time, resources? All these have to be kept in mind when conducting meetings, when planning meetings, when preparing for meetings in the community. So, again and again, I'm saying don't only prepare yourself for casework, but also for community work. You are a good community worker, you can become a good case worker, because in the community are people, places, purpose. All of Pullman is getting covered because we have children, we have elders, we have youth, we have adolescents. So, coming back to the sources of the information, when we gather information in the community, who are the different people who are giving us information? Not only the community leaders, not only the trainee social workers' own observations, not only the agency supervisor, not only the field staff, not only the fieldwork supervisor, but local groups, senior citizens, ward officers, doctors who are running clinics or dispensaries, primary health centers, any outreach work that is going on, any reports which are available with the organization, any municipal records which you can access to understand the functioning, the history, the geography of the community. Okay? If we had time, and when you have time, please conduct role play among yourselves. Get yourselves together to conduct a role play. That if you had to undertake a community meeting, how will you organize it? Who will take the initiative? Who will go to invite the people? All these things you can do through role play. The last 2 pages of this Word file, which I have prepared specially for you before coming to the conclusion of the last presentation and giving you time for feedback. I'm coming to what is called community profiling. There are certain guidelines which we should keep in mind when preparing a community profile. I would encourage you to write this down. Name of the community, geographical location, origin of the community and its development, when it was established, what were the important stages of development. That community which I was talking of that time to you, where I undertook Helpage India project, just for an example, that community is called Das Ghara. In Hindi, it means that it started with just 10 houses, but today it is a whole village. So, the origin of the community and its development need to be traced. What type of community is it? Is it urban community, rural community, semi-urban community? What are the characteristics of the community? What is the demographic population? What are the occupational patterns? Is there mostly skilled worker or unskilled worker? What are the infrastructure available? Is it thatched house? Is it unthatched house? What kind of roads are there? What is the sanitation facility? What are the water facility? What is the electricity facility? What are the health services? What are the education services? This has come twice. What are the consumer goods available? What is the transport and communication? What are the recreational facilities available? What are the common leisure time activities undertaken by the people? What are the cultural characteristics of the community? What is the education status of the different sections of society? Are there any formal associations in the community? Are there any informal associations like self-help groups? What are the other organizations working in the community? What are the programs and activities conducted by the different organizations? What are the outreach programs conducted? What are the dominant political groups in the community? What is the profile of the political community leaders? What is the nature of relationship with other identified leaders? They may be self-styled leaders. What are the leaders' opinions about the organization with which you work? their relationship with the organization which you represent. What are the existing resources within the community? What are the common problems identified for intervention? Which issues are addressed by the organization where you work and which are not? These factors which I have just told you, have you ever created a community profile like this in your fieldwork journey?
Yes, ma'am. But
You
not
have created.
exactly like this.
Huh. This is useful?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Very useful, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody wants to add something, Michael? Or anybody else? How have you created community profile? Is it different from what I have created? Anybody who has created a profile different from what I have created? Okay. So I'll just conclude this community work and then complete the presentation. You have to see the community work in consonance with the community profile. You have to prepare the community map as a supplement to community profile. While presenting and preparing your community profile and presenting it to your fieldwork supervisor, please indicate the sources of information from where you have gathered the data, the number of days that you spent in gathering the data, because all this is extremely important. Yes, Sungane, you want to say something? You have raised your hand. Do you want to say anything? While presenting the report on community
Yeah,
profiling,
yeah. That mine is just a question. We have tackled much on field work. Most especially, we have seen the issues to do with interviews, types of interviews, and then we have seen the community approachment, something like that. So, looking at the course module we have given to ignore content, that application, it's a bit different because we need to fill in. So, I don't know if you are going to elaborate on that matter, how we're supposed to fill in, or it's just the same normality we were supposed to take during the last time.
I have followed your course module when
Yes.
preparing. Please listen. From your course module, I have taken out the main points which are relevant. And on the basis of that, I am prepared and shared with you when you are undertaking field work and doing concurrent field work, what are the things you need to keep in mind. So now you see the report on concurrent field work which I have come to, which is what I was saying, that till yesterday, I have brought you up to orientation visits, field instruction, giving you details of field instruction, importance of casework, group work, and community work. My last 10 slides is on the report which you will prepare on your concurrent field work, in which you will write date of field work. Every day's field work report has to consist of date and day of field work, activities performed today. So whether you have done casework, whether you have done group work, whether you have engaged in community meeting, whether you have taken administrative tasks, whether you have had discussion with your supervisor, whether you had discussion with your co-worker, whether you planned a project, whether you planned a program on awareness building, whatever activities you have undertaken and whatever activities you were asked to do, what of that you have done, you have to narrate it. Thirdly, you should write observations related to agency functioning when you were undertaking those tasks. You were engaging with agency staff. Agency staff. You have to write that while engaging with that particular agency staff, what were your observations? What did you learn from that staff member? How they assisted you in functioning as a student social worker? How you used your co-workers' help to undertake field work. Subsequently, you will write what teamwork skills you learnt. Again, I am narrating assigned tasks and the tasks undertaken are different. I may have been given 5 tasks to do today, but I could only do 4. I need to narrate that so that when my fieldwork supervisor reads my report, she knows why I was able to or not able to undertake the tasks. What were my observations on each day of fieldwork? What were the administrative assignments given to me? What social work techniques I have used? What doubts or apprehensions I had while undertaking fieldwork? And what are the comments by the fieldwork supervisor? That is last, it will come after you submit your fieldwork report. This is extremely important. And I have already discussed social casework with you. I gave you example of casework. Remember yesterday?
Yes, I remember.
Then we discussed home visit. What are the observations from home visit? We gave examples. What you can learn from home visits, you have said to me. We also discussed when the casework will be terminated. The report of the social casework should answer 5 major questions. Why, what, when, where, and how. Why was the casework undertaken? How did we undertake the casework? Where did we undertake the casework interviews? What happened during the casework process? All these should be answered as part of your fieldwork report. Now we come to the importance of individual conference, which we discussed yesterday. I'm repeating it today. Reporting the individual conference, one-to-one meeting between the supervisor and you as a student social worker. What went well? What were the students' observations on that particular day of fieldwork? Any reflection on the assignment or the task which you undertook? What is your understanding of team building, consensus, or conflict? What were the dynamics in the organization which you observed, which you were a part of or not? What is your learning about working in a group as part of agency staff members? What feedback you got from fieldwork supervisor? What suggestions you got from agency supervisor? How did you incorporate this feedback into the fieldwork of the next day? What is the initiative, if any, undertaken by the student in case you get free time to do work, or someone is missing, or someone is absent in the organization, or your co-worker is unwell? Did you pitch in for his or her behalf? All this will constitute an integral part of your individual conference. The evaluation of the third semester block BSW fieldwork is based on the knowledge, skills, and attitudes. These 3 components are an integral part of any fieldwork journey. The knowledge gained in the field, the information acquired through fieldwork, the knowledge gained about the functioning of the organization, knowledge gained about community work, knowledge gained about casework, knowledge gained about any group work activities that you undertake. What skills have you learned? Skills of observation, skills of reflection, skills of analysis, skills of report writing, skills of working in a team, skills of conducting interviews, skills of working in communities, skills of undertaking group work. In the process, did your attitudes towards working with people change? Did you grow personally and professionally? Did you become more professional than you were in second semester fieldwork? Did your biases and prejudices get resolved? All this compose the third component of the evaluation process. The fieldwork supervisor will evaluate you on the basis of these 3 components. Finally, we come to the meaning of development of professional self as a social worker. What is the meaning of developing a professional social work self? It means that learning that personal and subjective experiences are to be kept aside from interfering with being professional while conducting casework and group work processes. We should not allow our personal biases and our subjective experiences to interfere. We should learn to understand our attitudes, our biases, our stereotypes, our prejudices. We need to be able to deal with them in the process of our fieldwork journey. We need to understand the influence of our behavior on the various clients whom we interact with or the community people whom we interact with. We need to use ourselves. You remember I spoke of self care. So we need to use ourselves in a non aggressive manner after dealing with or confronting any client. We need to show respect and concern in a natural and realistic manner. We need to stand up for our convictions and maintain ethical values while undertaking fieldwork. Last but not the least, we need to listen and appreciate other people's viewpoints and respect them for who they are. The final portion of the fieldwork journal constitutes the self evaluation report of the student. This constitutes writing in detail a summary of your experience gained during third semester fieldwork, writing in detail about the knowledge that you gained during your fieldwork journey, writing in detail the skills you acquired, writing about the attitudes which you had to change or which you garnered or which you matured in the third semester, and finally, how you developed into a professional social worker. The summary report of the third semester fieldwork needs to be written as follows. 1. Background information. 2. Objectives of undertaking fieldwork. What was the objectives with which you undertook fieldwork? What were the tasks undertaken throughout the semester? What were the observations in summary form from your third semester fieldwork? What has been your reflection of your fieldwork journey in that organization? What is the analysis you have arrived at? And if you had to revisit your fieldwork, looking back, what would you like to write as concluding, closing thoughts? Concluding, closing thoughts. Very important. One second. Just give me 1 second. Hello? Conclusion? हाँ हाँ जी हाँ चेक करूंगी और can you, Michael, you wanted to say something? Michael, you wanted to say something? Please go ahead. You want to say something?
I think it was accidental. He just lays it in accidental way.
You have any more questions, Michael?
No, ma'am, I don't have any question. I just raised the hand accidentally. Yeah.
Anybody wants to give me any feedback as we are concluding this 4 days? I hope it was useful for all of you.
I just want to say thank you for the elaboration and the time you spent with us. We have learned a lot since that summary you have given. We'll try our best to go to the field and we execute it in the right way. I don't know if we're supposed to use hard copy during the field work. Maybe that's another question because that one it's not in a form of that you can write it using the computer or any gadget. We need to print it and write it in a hard copy. I don't know which way is right as this is a
Yes, you are
online
supposed to use hard copy.
process.
Yes, you need to
Okay,
use hard
thank
copy.
you.
Hard copy. And any other questions you can ask Dr. Panigrahi. I'm extremely grateful to IGNOU and Dr. Panigrahi for giving me this opportunity to engage with you. It gives me opportunity to learn from you, to share to share your experiences, to share my experiences, and to enable you to see that there is a lot of commonality between your country and ours, to see that we can learn from each other, to see that there is scope for a lot of growth. And I'm wishing each one of you the best in your professional journey. Please stay safe, stay connected, and I hope I get another opportunity to engage with you and to share my experiential learning with you as a professional social worker. I'm very proud of your interaction in the past 4 days. You have really been very proactive, and I encourage you that in future classes also, please remain connected and stay safe. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Panigrahi. Please take care.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks for your encouragement. And I'm glad that I could be of use to you. Thank you.
I think the doctor is supposed to speak to us.